She looked up and saw Oliver Blackwell standing at the living room door, his posture stiff, his expression firm. "I need to talk to you alone." Lillian looked up, still holding a giraffe-shaped puzzle piece. "Is something wrong with Leo?" "No, it's about tonight. You're coming with me to the company party." She blinked, confused. "Sorry, what?" Oliver crossed his arms. "You're going with me to the gala, where something appropriate." Lillian stood up quickly, still trying to understand what he had just said. "I'm sorry, Mr. Blackwell, but I was hired as a nanny not to attend social events tonight. You'll be both. The person who was supposed to go canceled last minute. I need someone. You're here." "Problem solved." She raised an eyebrow. "That's not in the contract." "It is now." He turned on his heel, as if the matter was closed. "Hold on." Lillian followed him into the hallway. "You really think you can just call me up like you're ordering a pizza?" Oliver turned slowly, his face unreadable. "I pay well. I already arranged someone to take care of Leo tonight, and I hired a stylist for you. Dress, hair, everything." Lillian crossed her arms, not backing down. "Something wrong with my hair?" He took a deep breath, staying calm. "What's already nice can be even better," she scoffed, arrogant. "Be ready by 8 p.m. Don't be late." And he left. Lillian stood alone in the hallway, heart racing, eyes on the door that had just closed. She walked back to the living room, where Leo was watching her curiously, holding a puzzle piece. "You're going out with Dad?" She took a deep breath. "Looks like it, buddy, but what about our dinosaur? He'll have to wait tonight." "I'll be kind of like a princess." Leo smiled, not really understanding. Lillian sat back down on the rug, trying to act calm, but inside she was burning up. Oliver Blackwell thought he could control everything and everyone, and maybe he could, but she wasn't going to just follow orders. If she was going to that dinner, it would be on her terms, to show him and the world that she was more than just a nanny with a messy resume and an unfinished degree. At 7:05 p.m. the stylist arrived. She was a short, cheerful woman named Grace, who walked in like she was on a secret mission, carrying a rack full of red carpet-worthy dresses. "Miss Lillian, let's bring out your beauty. I love working with raw, authentic material." "Raw material?" Lillian raised an eyebrow. "In a good way, dear. You're beautiful. You just need a little help." With some hesitation, Lillian let Grace take over. The makeover included soft makeup, a simple updo with loose waves falling on her shoulders, and a flowing red dress with a classy cut that highlighted her slim waist and well-shaped shoulders. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself, not because she looked like someone else, but because for the first time in a long while she saw something she hadn't allowed herself to see, her best version. At 7:58 p.m. she walked down the mansion stairs, calm and composed. Oliver was waiting in the foyer, adjusting his tie. When he saw her, he froze. He didn't say anything at first, which coming from him was almost poetic. His eyes took in the dress, the hair, the simple earrings. Then he looked into her eyes. There was surprise, and maybe admiration. "You look acceptable." He cleared his throat. Lillian smiled, tilting her head slightly. "Not too bad for someone you hired as a nanny, huh?" Oliver ignored the comment, and held out his arm. She took it a bit sarcastically. "I'm going for me, just so you know." "Fine. As long as you smile in the photos, and don't spill wine on anyone. Your reasons are your own." As the front door opened and the car waited outside, Lillian's stomach turned. It was just one night, a show, a performance, but something inside her said things would never be the same again. The ballroom at the Westwood Hotel sparkled with gold and crystal. It was the night of the annual Blackwell Holdings event, where numbers were discussed behind toasts and appearances mattered just as much as contracts. Oliver walked in with Lillian at his side, and for a brief moment the noise in the room seemed to stop. She was there, in a striking red, a light fabric dress that fit her naturally without overdoing it. Her bare shoulders showed perfect posture, her hair loose, and soft waves moved slightly in the air conditioning. There were no flashy jewels or heavy makeup, just pure elegance. The first to notice the two of them was Meredith Kensington, Oliver's ex-fiancée to one of Chicago's most traditional families. She was standing with two company executives. When she slowly turned, as if sensing the moment, her eyes froze on the red dress. "Oh." Meredith gave a sideways smile. "Did you bring a date tonight?" Oliver replied with just a curt nod. Lillian stood firm at his side, a slight smile on her lips, not broad, not shy, just confident, the smile of someone who didn't need to prove anything. "Hello." Lillian extended her hand politely. Lillian Cruz. Meredith shook her hand with two fingers, as if handling something delicate. "Charmed. We hadn't met yet. Interesting color choice." Her gaze moved over the dress. "Red is bold, very noticeable." "That's right." Lillian smiled. "Being invisible never really appealed to me." Meredith forced a muffled laugh. "And do you work at Blackwell Holdings?" "Something like that," Lillian answered in a neutral tone. "Interesting." Meredith turned to the men around her. "Lately, the company has been adopting some rather creative inclusion policies." Oliver cleared his throat. "Meredith, if you're implying something—" "Oh, of course not," she shot back, smiling. "I'm just saying it's admirable to see the company investing in alternative talent." Lillian stepped forward, slightly tilting her head just a bit. You know, I really admire women like you. Really, Meredith seemed caught off guard. Of course, it takes courage to wear a dress with so many layers and still walk as if you're floating and keeping your balance in those heels. That's an art. Meredith couldn't quite tell if that was a compliment or a dig, and that was exactly the effect Lillian wanted. Oliver looked at her in surprise that had been elegant and clever and oddly fun in the minutes that followed. Many eyes turned their way as they walked toward the main table. Lillian kept her posture straight, greeting people with polite ease, but no fuss. There was something about her, a mix of simplicity and confidence, that was intriguing. "Are you all right?" Oliver asked under his breath as they settled at the table. "I'm great," she replied calmly, picking up her napkin. "By the way, you should smile more. Your face looks friendlier when it's not frozen." He raised an eyebrow. "You know you're talking to the company president, right? And you know you're talking to someone who isn't afraid of presidents, right?" Oliver didn't answer, but the corner of his mouth threatened a smile. Dinner was served in courses. Lillian stayed observant, watching the guests' movements. Every detail seemed rehearsed. Laughter, toasts, the exchange of cards. It was corporate theater, and she surprisingly seemed to understand the script. By the second glass of sparkling wine, Meredith reappeared, this time with an elegant gentleman at her side. "Oh, well, dear," she said with a sparkle in her eye. "This is Mr. Beaumont, one of our French investors in green energy. He wanted to meet your guest, Miss Cruz." The man extended his hand. "A pleasure. We were just saying how your presence has been notable." Lillian shook his hand firmly. "Very kind. It's a pleasure as well. Do you work in development?" he asked. Oliver opened his mouth to correct him, but Lillian was quicker. "I've been following some of the company's social projects, especially those focused on accessibility. I believe technology is only progress if it includes people, not excludes them." Beaumont looked at her with genuine interest. "Very well put." Meredith pursed her lips slightly. William smiled. "In Paris, for example, there are community solar energy models that don't just supply power, but also train local residents to manage the systems. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Lumiès project." Data. Beaumont looked visibly impressed. "Yes, of course. It's one of our pilot projects. I think it's fascinating. I read last quarter's report. The impact curve is promising." Oliver watched her, surprised. He had no idea she read reports. "Miss Cruz," Beaumont said, "would you be open to scheduling a meeting? I'd be curious to hear your ideas." Lillian nodded, still smiling. "I'd be happy to." When he walked away, Meredith stayed silent for a few seconds. "Wow," she finally said, "you really are full of surprises." "You learn fast when you pay attention," Lillian said, "and I pay close attention." Meredith forced a smile and stepped back, disappearing into the crowd. Oliver turned to Lillian, still processing what he had just seen. "Where did you learn about community energy?" "I haven't been a nanny my whole life, Mr. Blackwell. I had plans before I had to reinvent myself." "Reinvent. Surviving takes creativity." He stayed quiet for a few seconds. "You made a good impression. I'm glad I'm not here to make a bad one." Beaumont actually thought you were an executive. "Maybe one day I will be. Who knows?" Oliver held his wine glass, watching her carefully. "What else do you know that you haven't shared?" She looked at him with a spark in her eyes. "That you'll have to find out the morning after the event." Oliver Blackwell couldn't focus on anything. The financial report from the Seattle branch ignored a call from the legal director, postponed. Even his usual strong black coffee tasted off, all because of a woman in a red dress who was supposed to be just his son's nanny. Lillian had disrupted the smooth, predictable world he took so much pride in managing. He found her in the backyard, sitting with Leo under a tree, drawing dinosaurs with colored chalk. Her hair was in a messy ponytail. She wore a loose blouse and jeans, but her presence was just like the night before, steady, confident, focused. "We need to talk," Oliver said, cutting into the moment like a fire alarm. Lillian stood up slowly. "Is this about the dinner?" "It's about the reaction to the dinner." He glanced at Leo. "Can you give us a minute, champ?" Leo pouted but ran inside with a handful of chalk. "What is it?" Lillian crossed her arms. "Last night you made quite an impression, a positive one. All the investors were talking, some even thought you were a new executive. It helped the company's image and mine too." She raised an eyebrow. "Are you thanking me?" "Not exactly." He ran a hand through his hair. "I'm offering something, a deal that you keep pretending to be my girlfriend for the next 2 months." Lillian let out a short laugh. "You're kidding." "I'm serious. We've got a lot of important business and social events coming up. My reputation and the company's would benefit if I were seen with someone like you, someone like me, smart, well-spoken, and already part of the act." By the way, she looked at him for a few seconds. "And what's in it for me?" "A generous bonus. And if you want, we can update your contract with new terms, so I'd have to dress like a magazine model, walk next to you smiling, and stay quiet. When the rich folks in your world start talking nonsense, you're free to respond as long as it's with class." "All right." Then she stepped closer. "Here are my conditions. First, full autonomy with Leo. I take care of him my way. Second, I dress how I want, whether it's for a party or coffee in the park. Third, no orders outside of what we agree on. And fourth, there's more. There is. I get to decide when the act ends if I feel it's time to stop before 2 months are Up, that's it, no debate. Oliver hesitated for a moment, then he nodded. Deal, great. She held out her hand. We have ourselves a fake agreement. He shook it, and in that quick touch something unspoken passed between them. In the weeks that followed, Lillian's presence in Oliver's life grew stronger, not just at business events. She was there when Leo refused to eat his vegetables, when the neighbor's dog got into the yard, even when the house alarm went off by mistake at 4 in the morning. Oliver found out Lily and made up songs on the spot to get Leo to brush his teeth, that she danced around the kitchen when she thought no one was watching, that she read company reports just out of curiosity and left notes with suggestions that to his surprise actually made sense. You know, this solves a problem our team hasn't been able to fix in 3 months. He said one evening, holding one of her notes. It just takes a little common sense, she replied, sipping tea with bare feet up on the couch. You all live in such a bubble, you forget how regular people think. Did you just call me out of touch? Politely. Thanks. I think they looked at each other for a moment, then they laughed like old friends, which clearly they weren't yet. The agreement between them included dinners, business lunches, magazine photos, and even a yacht trip with European shareholders. Lillian, always dressed elegantly in her own way, and stood out with her light and sharp sense of humor. She never tried to fit into that world, and that's exactly what made her shine in it. Your girlfriend is fascinating, one of the investors said during a dinner. Oliver simply nodded, not sure how to respond. Later that night, while driving back with Lillian in the passenger seat, he said, You got a lot of compliments. That's because I know when to smile and when to throw in a joke. The trick is making a provocation look like charm. You like to provoke, and you like to control, so we're even. But the real impact of Lillian's presence wasn't at the events, it was at home. Leo started to change. He used to be shy and quiet, but now he talked more, smiled more, he asked questions, drew non-stop, and every morning he waited for Lillian with excitement. One evening Oliver came home early and found the two of them under a blanket watching cartoons with popcorn scattered across the couch. Leo was asleep, his head resting on her lap. Oliver stood still watching. Lillian made a quiet gesture asking him not to wake the boy. He walked over and almost without thinking sat down beside her. They stayed there in silence for a few minutes, sharing the calm breath of a home finally at peace. He's a lot happier, Oliver said softly. He just needed real attention, time, patience, and someone who isn't always watching the clock. Am I that someone who's always watching the clock? I didn't say that. She smiled. But if you want a tip, try learning the names of his toys. Oliver looked at the dinosaur figure in his son's hands. That one's green Dino, he's Theo, and he's blue, she whispered, laughing. Looks like I have a lot to learn, at least you admit it. The next morning Leo was drawing on the porch while Oliver read the newspaper. Lillian was in the kitchen making pancakes. Daddy, how can Lillian be my new mom? Oliver almost dropped his coffee cup. What? Leo, with the most serious expression in the world, pointed to the drawing he had made him. Lillian and Oliver holding hands with a smiling dog next to them. She tells me stories, she gives me baths without complaining, she makes me laugh, and she understands me just like Mommy did. Oliver looked at the drawing, then at his son. That's not quite that simple, Leo, but it would be nice, right? Oliver didn't know what to say, he just gently ruffled the boy's hair. Lillian appeared at the door with a spatula in her hand. What's going on? Nothing. Oliver stood up. Leo's just imagining things. She noticed his expression, but didn't push. Instead, she served breakfast with a calm smile. Imagination is one of the best things a child can have. Oliver didn't reply, but when he looked at the drawing again on the porch, he realized the boy wasn't the only one imagining things. He was too. That night Oliver sat alone in his office looking through photos from recent events. In every one of them, Lillian was at his side, smiling, talking, sometimes looking at him with that mix of challenge and sweetness. He still couldn't quite figure out. The plan was to pretend, but it was getting harder and harder to remember what was pretend and what was real. The sky that Monday morning was overcast, like the weather knew something important was about to happen. Oliver was walking quickly through the halls of Blackwell Holdings, phone pressed to his ear, nerves on edge. He had appendicitis today. Oliver's voice came out somewhere between shock and panic. On the other end, his assistant tried to calm him. Yes, sir, David is already at the hospital, but unfortunately, he won't be able to attend the Horizon Project presentation to the International Investor Board. Oliver hung up without replying. The meeting was in 1 hour, and the Horizon Project, a bold plan for urban restructuring with a social focus, was a risky bet. It needed more than just numbers. It needed meaning, and now without David, their lead presenter, he had no spokesperson. He stepped into his office, unsure of what to do, and took a deep breath. That's when he heard footsteps behind him. Is everything okay? It was Lillian carrying a folder with Leo's drawings from the night before. No. Oliver replied plainly, our lead executive for Horizon is out, and this presentation could decide a $20 million investment. Lillian was silent for a moment, then she placed the drawings on the desk, brushed her hair back, and said, I can help. This isn't one of those moments where you offer to make tea, is it? No, she smiled. But if you want, I can do that too. What I'm saying is you showed me the reports. We've talked about this project many times, and what it's missing is exactly what I can offer, which is humanity. She said it simply. The numbers are good, but the story behind them needs to be told by someone who understands people. Oliver watched her for a few seconds. You don't have experience giving presentations, and you don't have many options, remember. He smiled, one of those involuntary smiles that slip out before logic can stop them. Half an hour later the investors began entering the room. Big names, pressed ties, controlled smiles. These were the sharpest eyes in the sustainable urban development field. Oliver gave the introduction brief, and to the point. Then he handed the microphone to Lillian. She walked to the front of the room with the ease of someone who did it every day. She wore a beige blazer over a simple white blouse, and her hair was loose on her shoulders. Good morning, my name is Lillian Cruz, she began. I'm not an engineer or an architect or an economist, but I know exactly what